This is Mnisota Makhoche, Minnesota, the land where the water reflects the sky. Who belongs to this land? This question used to have a simpler answer: the Dakota and the Anishinaabe. Now the answer isn't so simple. What does this place mean to you? The answer is different for everybody. But it is through knowing these stories that we can finally start to decolonize. Where do we call home? There are many names.
Mnisota Makhoche kihe, toked indugsha he.
What does Minnesota mean to you?
Denita hashni hechiha, Makhoche kide aikoya nichia he.
If you come from far away, can you still have a connection to Mnisota Makhoche?
How mitakie, Jamie amakiapie, Bereota edwatiye. I'm white, specifically Euro-American, which means that while my immediate family comes from America, my distant relatives or my ancestors come from Europe. Mnisota Makhoche to me has been a teacher and a caretaker and holds so many memories for me. It supported me and the people I love for most of my life, and by that I mean having air and water and food, joy and excitement from interacting with plants and animals. Everything that I have and that is a part of me comes from this land. And it's been an inspiration for me too in studying wildlife and conservation biology, and I see it as part of my purpose, which is connecting or reconnecting people to the earth. So now that I've learned more about the true history of Minnesota, which includes lies and manipulation and displacement and genocide of Dakota and Ojibwe people, that can feel really unsettling. There's a colonizer joke in there somewhere. But that can feel really awful that something so precious to me and close to, it's something I see as part of myself, comes from these egregious acts. So now living in Mnisota Makhoche for me means accepting those feelings as part of my experience here and resisting or letting go of any feelings of defensiveness or anger or discomfort, and accepting the responsibility to addressing injustices and decolonizing in ways like dismantling these systems of oppression that led to where we are today and that continue.
Ani and Buju, Jack and Dijnikas, Galababagnikag and Donjapa, Ajijak and Dodem. Ga Akov and Matisian, Oma Buana King, Ga Ijidayan. Ninda Pitendan, O Ake. Mijigwa Ingweyan, Nasab, Ga Ingwewad, Meyuja, Ninda Nakub Jiganag, Besho Ima Ga Tinakiwad. Meyusha in the Nakub Jiganag, Oki Kaganunawan, in New Biweden. Ninowind Ajijak, Wedu Demiyang, Inga Gigadomen. As a descendant of the Crane clan, I think it's my responsibility to tell the stories of our people and the histories within my own family in Minnesota and in Minneapolis. Those stories are mostly stories of strength and resistance and laughter and a lot of love, but there's also those more difficult stories and more tragic ones. My grandma, who's a citizen of White Earth, Ojibwe, her family was removed from White Earth to Minneapolis during that removal period in which a lot of Native families were going through that. They moved to Minneapolis, which wasn't even the government's land to offer up. It was, and still to this day, is Dakota land. My grandma's family, they were boarding school survivors, and they experienced a lot of racism and settler colonial violence once they got to Minneapolis. These experiences and that trauma can take a toll on people, and that shame can be really generational and hard to shake. And that's our reality. But when I am with my family and we're teasing each other and talking about good memories and telling good stories, I remember all that matters is that in spite of erasure and boarding schools and removal, we're still existing in the land that our ancestors first found that wild rice growing on water so many years ago. So that's what Minnesota means to me.
Minnesota is my American experience. I came here as an international student, and now I consider Minnesota my second
I've
home.
lived in the Twin Cities my whole life. I used to live in Maple Grove and now I live in Minneapolis. And I think the one thing that really sticks out to me is that the people here are really amazing. Also with the culture and the activities that we have here. And I don't really see myself ever leaving. I just love it to death.
Minnesota to me means passive-aggressive nice and snow in May.
Minnesota means mosquitoes.
Minnesota means family to me. It means where my ancestors have lived for hundreds of years. It makes me think of how they lived their life off of the land, out of the waters. So when I hear the creek in the background or I see a lake, I wonder what life was like for my ancestors.
Homatakepi. Woyawanka wanji imawanka bihe. Mnisota Makhoche ki dokri baduk chaya. Heya baduk diktido. What do I think about the land known as Minnesota? Well, first off, as a Dakota person, this is where we're from. So Makhoche ki de wakhan. So this land is sacred to Dakota people. This land at one time supplied everything for us. And the connection with this land runs deep for many of us. And I think about one elder, his name is Clifford Chunku, and he was talking to somebody. He asked where they're from, and they said Europe. And he asked, but do you live in Minnesota? And this person said, yes, born in Minnesota. And he said, but your roots do not run as deep as Dakota people. You have roots. But as Dakota people, because we are the original people here, our roots run the deepest. So our connection to the land, to sacred sites, to the air, to the landscape, that means a lot to us. And I know a lot of people feel connection to land, but again, as a Dakota person, our connections runs the deepest. As a Dakota, I am attached to the land.
One thing is certain from these stories. To all who call it home, Minnesota means something. But there are people here who came from this land, who come from Bedote. To the Dakota, this is ancestral territory. It's a space of genesis to those who have been here longer than any of us. But in more recent times, this has been a place of broken treaties, stolen land, and genocide. Still, to this day, Mnisota Makhoche has meaning to the Dakota people. It means more than most folks might even understand right now. And we have overdue obligations as guests on this land. With that in mind,
Tokeked Makhoche ki de Dakota ki wichun ki chuptahe. Oftentimes, when we're presented with these kinds of questions, our minds go to, well, what can I do? What do I have to give? Or what should be done? I think an important first step is taking that conversation out of our own heads and having that conversation with other people, especially with indigenous communities.
decolonization is more than just knowing the histories of the place in which you occupy. It's being uncomfortable with that knowledge and having the obligation and the necessity to take action. No matter who you are, you have some sort of responsibility to that knowledge. And we need to be good patrons of that. But it's through these first conversations of actually knowing our stories, our positionality to land, that we can actually reach these goals of decolonization, of land back,